Do you realize what I have done for you? The Lord asks of St. Peter. Do you realize what I have done for you? On the cross, Jesus hangs with his eyes fixed on the mission for which he came. The mission for which he was born 33 years prior on December the 25th of the year zero. The mission not to teach, though he did. Not to preach, though he did. Not to heal or work miracles or raise the dead, though he did. But the mission, the salvation of souls. And so tonight is accomplished. For this is the night of our redemption. This is the night of life's victory over death. This is the night when the grave has been broken and can no longer hold us. This is the night that sets us apart, that sets believers apart from the entire world. This is the night that is dazzling. This is the night that is brighter than the day. This is the night of the resurrection. This is the night that is day. This is the death that is new life. This is the victory that makes everything else make sense and brings light to the understanding of all things that exist. Thursday, I mentioned in my homily that it was a rough day, and indeed it was. It was a rough day not because of I don't know, necessarily bad things happening to me. It was a rough day because I heard of a number of complaints that they all just piled up on the same day that I didn't want to listen to, but I had to. It was a rough day because I had not one, not two, but 4 emergency calls and went to the hospital 4 separate times for people in need of a priest while I was trying to get the liturgy planned and set up for Holy Thursday. It was a rough time because I was present for someone's death and consoled 3 others who had died, the families of 3 others who have died. It was a rough day because I had to lead the school through a retreat and carry all of that weight while smiling for the kids. It was a rough day because it was a real experience of my priesthood. And the priesthood, many days, is heavy. And was in fact very heavy this Holy Thursday. Good Friday, I received several phone calls from several of the people that I had spoken with and walked with all day Holy Thursday. Phone calls that I don't normally get. Phone calls of gratitude and thanks that refocused my eyes on the mission. The Lord saying to me on Thursday, do you realize what I have done for you? To give you this gift, though it be a heavy burden, of the priesthood. Friday being the day, hearing those words of gratitude, even though I got even 2 more emergency calls. I even had one last night and went to the hospital about 8 o'clock last night after all the Good Friday stuff. But experiencing walking with God's people as they sought him and experienced the salvation that he won for them and the grace that I, though unworthy, was called to dispense to them. And so my heart on Good Friday was refocused on the mission, the salvation of souls. And so tonight it culminates in the resurrection. Unlike every other Holy Saturday, I have gone through this entire day with not an ounce of stress on my back, with nothing but a joyful song in my heart, looking forward to this beautiful liturgy and being surrounded by wonderful parishioners and volunteers and servers and the people of this parish who make these liturgies so beautiful and meaningful. These 3 days have been a new experience to me of the Triduum and even of my priesthood. And for that I remain grateful. But these experiences, my own personal understanding of my priesthood, have also deepened my understanding of what this Paschal mystery, what this threefold liturgy is. For the Jewish people in the time of Jesus, the great feasts of Judaism, the great feast of Exodus, they all kind of have piled together, and they were all celebrated at the same time. They would have celebrated the solemnity, or they would have celebrated their feast of Passover that year on Thursday, the 15th day of the month of Nisan. We don't use that calendar. But it would have coordinated to our Thursday, and where we get our Holy Thursday from. The days following that Thursday of Passover for the Jews would have been the feasts of unleavened bread. And then the following Sabbath would have been the day after the following Sabbath would have been the feast of the harvest of wheat. The Passover is the celebration of the angel of death passing over the Israelites in Egypt. After they had slaughtered the lamb and marked the doorposts with the blood of the lamb, that the angel of death would pass over those marked by the blood. In John's gospel, Jesus is slaughtered at the same time that the lambs are slaughtered for the coming feast of Passover. The next day, Good Friday, for us, for the Jews at that time, was the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Unleavened bread being a bread of tribulation, of food of someone about to flee. It was a reminder to the Israelites of what their ancestors had to endure in the Exodus. That though they were in their homes in Egypt, they had to gird their loins and pack their bags. They had to not only slaughter and roast the lambs of sacrifice, but they also had to prepare unleavened bread so that at a moment's notice, after the angel of death had passed over them, they would have to get up and run for their lives. In the Exodus out of Egypt, across the Red Sea, and into the desert for 40 years, where they would just complain to Moses and worship a false idol. For us, the Lamb has been slain, and his blood has marked the doorposts of our hearts through the sacraments of baptism and confirmation. The Feast of Unleavened Bread for us is the most holy Eucharist, the bread of life and the bread of the angels broken for us on the altar to give us new life and strength. That bread for us is the bread of tribulation. We receive the most holy Eucharist every time that we approach this altar because we are still a pilgrim people walking through the desert to find new life in the promised land and the life to come. The next day, and this is where it gets very interesting, the day after the Sabbath, which for the Jews, remember the Sabbath is the seventh day, Saturday. The day after the Sabbath would be the Feast of the New Harvest. And the Feast of the New Harvest would be that the high priest that year would take a single piece of grain, of wheat, and he would take that wheat and he would parade to the front of the temple, and with two hands he would hold the wheat in front of for all the people to see, and he would wave that one little piece of wheat. How ridiculous it must have looked to just be waving this one little thing. And as he would wave it, all of the priests of the temple, the Levites, would start shouting and chanting Psalm 30. What was dead is now alive again. What we thought had transpired, what we thought was broken and never to be seen, has come back to life. Death has no more sting on us, but is the bearer of new life to come. The priest of the temple would have been standing in front of the temple with that single grain of wheat, celebrating that what was dead, the fields were barren because of the winter months, and the first harvest of the spring would be the single grain of wheat, and he would be singing that what was dead was alive. And as he's singing that at daybreak on that first day of the week, the day after their Sabbath, the Jews would be celebrating, and all of Jerusalem would be just thumping with cheers and with song and with celebration. But Mary Magdalene, Joanna, and Mary would be at the tomb of Jesus weeping. As this Psalm 30 would be echoing over the hillside behind them, just a mere meters away, that what was dead is now alive. What Caiaphas the high priest that year was singing, he did not realize. He did not realize that he was ushering in the new covenant. The new covenant of the bread who was slain. The lamb of Passover who was slaughtered. The bread, the unleavened bread that was prepared for those in tribulation and persecution and fleeing, was being broken and offered. And what was thought to be dead, the Son of God, was indeed alive again. This is the great message, that all of these things have come to fulfillment. That our lives are made new and that our death has been destroyed. That we Christians no longer have anything to be afraid of, because even death itself is not the final word. Because what is dead is alive again. The former ways have passed away, and the new covenant has come to light. If you paid close attention during this long liturgy of the Word, all of these 9 readings, and all of their 9 responsorial psalms, and all of their 9 prayers, if you paid attention, there was something that the church was begging heaven for. That the church would continue to grow. That the life that the church fosters would be spread to every nation. That the body of Christ would continue to expand, and that new and more people would come to an understanding of Him. This is the night that life has destroyed death. This is the night that the church has won her victory. This is the night where God awakens the hearts of those who are asleep and brings them to new life. This is finally the night, after 40 long days in the desert of Lent, after 40 days of doing our penance, after all of the things that life has thrown at us, this is the night that is as bright as the day. Dazzling is this night for us, because there is new life in the gospel. And that prayer is not just a prayer asking for God to make new Christians appear out of nothing, but it is a prayer that we offer every year, that God inspires our own hearts to go out and to spread this gospel, to proclaim this light, that this pillar of fire, the pillar of God's promise, is carried into the world, that others come to life. The gospel is the gospel of life and humanity living to her fullness. This is the night of our victory. And so it is only fitting that we not only gather around a candle. It's not only fitting that we gather to hear the story of our salvation, but now finally, after their preparation, this is the night where we gather to welcome new Christians into the church, into the body of Christ, and into the new life to which they have been called. Those to be baptized tonight, please join me at the fountain.